of good cheer. Christmas is here. Merry, 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 merry Christmas. Merry, 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 merry Christmas. All on his and all without end. Hear triple tone to everyone. Hark on the bells, sweet silver bells. All seem to say, throw kids away. Christmas is here, bringing a cheer to everyone. Ding in the ball, ding dong dong. That is the song. We jump away, all carefully. One seems to hear words of good cheer from everywhere, filling the air. Oh, Holly Palm, raising the song, pouring it down, telling the tone, tearing. While people sing songs of good cheer. Christmas is here. Merry, 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 merry Christmas. Merry, 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 merry Christmas. All on this end, all without end, their triple tone to every home.
All on this end, on without end, their triple tone to every home.
Ding dong, ding dong. Oh, ba-da-ba-da-da-bia, ba-da-ba-da-da-bia, da-ba-dia, dia. Da-ba-dia, da-bia, ba-da. It's the most wonderful time of the year. With those kids you go belling and everyone telling you be of good cheer. Be of good cheer. It's the most wonderful time of the year. It's the happiest season of all. With those holiday greetings and gay happy meetings when friends come to call. Friends come to call. It's the happiest season of all. Season of all.
There'll be parties for hosting, marshmallows for toasting, and caroling out in the snow. There'll be scary ghost stories and tales about glories of Christmases long, long ago.
Oh, it's almost wonderful time of the year. There'll be much mistletoeing and hearts will be glowing when loved ones are near. Loved ones are near. It's the most wonderful time. It's the most wonderful time. It's the most wonderful time of the year.
Wonderful time of the year.
With anthems of Orient are bearing gifts. We traverse afar, field and fountain, moor and mountain, following yonder star. Oh, star of wonder, star of night, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light. Born a king on Bethlehem's plain, moonlight reigns on Bethlehem, a king forever, ceasing never, o'er us all to reign. Oh, star of wonder, star of night, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light. Oh, guide us to thy perfect light. Bring incense to offer have I.
It's here to offer have I.
Oh, incense owns a deity nigh. Oh, prayer and praising, all men praising, worship Him, God Most High. Earthly gifts to offer have I.
What
Lights
night,
cannot be
what night, what night,
and silent nights. Hallelujah, hallelujah, to the heavenly praise.
One of heaven, star of wonder, star of night, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect. One of heaven, one of heaven, one of heaven, one of heaven.
We three kings of Orient
Merry Christmas,
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
good tidings we bring to you and your king.
Good tidings for Christmas and a Happy New Year. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
I've worked on the janitor operation of health. Yeah. Yeah. Say that again? Oh, yeah. Wow.
It works. How about the Powell High School seniors? Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning and welcome to the Powell Pearl Harbor Remembrance Program. My name is Larry Sharp. I'm a member of the Disabled American Veterans Chapter 24 and president of the Veterans Appreciation Program here in Powell, both of which are responsible for putting on this program. Thank you for coming today for this most important occasion. Let us begin, as we rightfully should, with the invocation, posting of the colors, and the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise if you are able. Today's invocation will be given by Chaplain Ron Nagel of the Marine Corps League.
I'm here, Larry.
It's all you.
All right. Please uncover and join me in prayer. Almighty God, we solemnly remember Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor. We take a backward look to December 7th, 1941. We see a nation that was lulled into complacency and vulnerable to foreign aggression. Today, on this 82nd anniversary, we honor the memories of the 2,400 brave Americans who gave their lives and to those who stood in America's defense in the years that followed. This day of remembrance is a time to look back and recount their sacrifices for the cause of freedom. This unprovoked attack on America prompted an inner look which kindled a fire in the bosom of our citizens to avenge the deaths of our sailors, Marines, airmen, and soldiers. Complacency soon gave way to faith, courage, patriotism, and resolution to meet the enemy head on, as men and women queued up at recruiting offices across America. May we also look inward to find the character and courage to stand in defense of our country and for our threatened constitutional freedoms that have been purchased with blood and valor since the founding of our republic. There was the forward look of a determination to defeat our foe, even at a tremendous loss of life on the islands of the Pacific, and they were willing to carry the sword of retribution to the mainland of Japan. Lord, we ask for thy strength and guidance as we continually face other foes in the deceptive garbs of terrorism and communism. Our enemies ruthlessly advance from within and from without and remain bent on our destruction. History often repeats itself. Most everyone in this hall has vivid memories of the events that transpired on September 1st, 2001. What's next? A horizontal look reveals uncertainty, anxiety, and fears of what awaits future generations of Americans, and therefore we need to learn from history and be vigilant at our post. A moral nation and a strong military are great deterrents to another attack, for thou hast said, righteousness exalteth a nation. What is true of a nation is also true of the individual. Lord, challenge each of us to look back at 2023 and evaluate our past failures and victories. May we look in and ask ourselves if we have made peace with thee by grace through faith. Have we done our best to strengthen our country and to help our brother veterans, their families, and our community? May we look forward to a new year in 2024 with new resolutions to serve God and country with a renewed fervor. And most importantly, may we always look up to thee, from whence cometh our strength. May all that we say and do today bring honor to those who have sacrificed themselves and so nobly served, and in all things bring glory to thy holy name. Amen. You may recover.
Thank you. We will now have a posting of the colors by the Carnes High School ROTC.
Left, right, 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 left, right, left. Oh, left. Oh, left, face. Present, colors.
Please join with Mr. Gary Hannes, Commander of Disabled American Veterans, Chapter 24, in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Place your hand over your heart or salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2.
We will now have the national anthem by the Powell High School Singers.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming? Whose broad stripes and bright stars through the stars, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Order, others. Left, face. Forward, march. Left, 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 right, 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 left, right, left. Other guy. Oh, order, others. Five.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Here, you sit here. Hey, Larry.
There's two here and there's two here.
All right, for those of you out front, we've got a couple more seats back here in the back. You all want to come in and sit down? Hold up your hand if your table's got some seats around it.
Got 2, 3, 4.
Well, we're both not. We're trying to get everyone seated. We got there you go.
We have some more seats back here in the back.
Table over here.
All right, as we get seated here, I just briefly want to take this time to thank some of our sponsors and welcome special guests as we are being served lunch provided by the Wild Boar Tavern here in Powell in compliments of the Disabled American Veterans Chapter 24. So can somebody help bring in some lunches? All right. As we do that, a few introductions. First and foremost, a Medal of Honor recipient, Sergeant Sammy Davis, who we will hear from a little later. A round of applause, please, for Mr. Sammy Davis. All right, as we serve some boxed lunches, we have some others that we would like to recognize that has helped make this possible. If you would, hold up your hand, please, and announce your name. Very important guest, Mr. Gerald York, 30-year Army veteran and grandson of Medal of Honor recipient Alvin C. York. We also have a number of veterans from the Disabled Americans Veterans Chapter 24. You hold your hand up, please. Which is what make this possible. Members of the Vietnam Veterans of America, Captain Bill Robinson, Chapter 1078. Also, Miss Michelle Carringer, Tennessee State Representative from the 16th District. Larson J., Knox County Commissioner at Large. Are you here, Larson?
Yes.
All right. Captain Bill, you're late. All right. Yeah, let's back up a minute. And while Captain Bill Robinson is still standing up, give a hand of it. Many of you know, and maybe those that you don't know, Captain Bill Robinson is the longest held non-commissioned officer as a prisoner of war in U.S. military history. Wow. Glad he's here.
Honored that he's here.
Yes. State Senator Britton, is he here by chance? It's his birthday today. Randy McNally, our Lieutenant Governor, did he show up? No? All right. How about Tim Graham? Where you at, Tim? Tim is over the Expo Center. We couldn't be having this without his help. Dwight Disney, Ron Pharmacy. No. Charles Morgan, President of Gray Hodges. Are you here?
If not,
Dick, are you here?
yeah.
Say hi.
Hi.
Dr. Tim Kennedy, Director of the Powell High School Singers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jimmy Smith, Powell High School history teacher. And let's not forget them themselves, the Powell High School Singers. Members of the Carnes High School Junior ROTC. And outside and sometimes inside, our bagpiper, Miss Nikki Baird. Sammy, you're still continuing to serve, aren't you?
Everybody's hungry.
All right. As we move along, we do have a special presentation. We'd like to do that at this time. Many of you are familiar with the Quilts of Valor. Great organization. We have a veteran of World War II that has never received one, and we would like to bless him with that privilege today. The quilt says unequivocally, thank you for your service and sacrifice in serving this nation. Mr. Bob Luttrell of Knoxville, would you come to the front, please? Can you come up? Huh? You don't have to. All right, maybe you ought to go over there.
There's bring it to him.
There we go.
Bob was on a minesweeper in the Pacific during the invasion of Okinawa.
All right.
His ship found a mine. He's a minesweeper. They found a mine, and the ship sank in 3 minutes. Miss Gwen Cole of Clinch River Quilts of Valor will present Bob with a quilt. Baby.
So, for those who do not know the story of Quilts of Valor, from a family of 10, I usually can speak real loud. I live with a Vietnam helicopter mechanic veteran, so everything's loud in our house. But in 2003, a lady named Catherine Roberts had a son in Afghanistan. She often had fitful dreams, and one night she dreamt of a young soldier sitting on the foot of her bed. So she woke up worried and said, I need to comfort him in some way. So she made the very first Quilt of Valor. That was in 2003. She took it to Walter Reed Army Hospital and was refused admittance to give this to a veteran. She eventually prevailed I do not know the story of how long it took, but she finally got in and gave it to a young soldier who had lost one of his legs. They did see how comforting that was. This is about 10 or 11,000 volunteers across the United States who worked tirelessly to make these quilts, and all through no cost to the veteran. It's all ran with donations. And so today we want to honor Mr. Bob Luttrell with a quilt. Now sometimes they don't appreciate this very much in the summertime if we're
I
outside.
do, I sleep alone.
Well, you can wrap in this quilt, and it's really not made for it's for your couch or your recliner or wherever you're sitting. But if you wear this quilt out, I'll make you another one. Bob Luttrell, the Quilts of Valor Foundation wishes to recognize you for your service to our nation. We consider it a privilege to honor you, though we may never know the extent of your sacrifice and service to protect and defend the United States of America. As an expression of gratitude, we award you this Quilt of Valor. Because you're such a star, we put all stars on there. Okay, so this is,
Let me tell you something funny. I got a friend that's at the Temple Baptist Church, and she honored me with a flag, so I sleep under a flag every night.
well, all right. Thank you, sir, for your service to our nation. Without you, soldiers, we would be speaking a different language now. So, yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Somebody asked me, says, where were you and what were you doing on December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day? Well, I was a sophomore in high school, and I lived across the street from my grandmother, and this was on a Sunday, and she was a pretty portly woman, and of course they wore corsets back in those days, and it was Bobby's job to go up there and lace up that corset so she could look real trim, put 250 pounds in a zipper. The phone rang, it was my father, and that's yelled, hello, one day of nothing, one day of nothing. And it says, turn on the radio. Radio? I said, what's wrong? He says, well, we're at war. He says, Pearl Harbor has been bombed. I said, what's Pearl Harbor? Sophomore in high school. He says, you'll find out before it's over with. 2 years later, I was in a coat of blue and bell-bottom trousers. And about 15 months later, I was on a ship headed to Okinawa.
Well, sir, in honor of this, I went to Hawaii, and I brought back a Hawaii bag to put your quilt in. I went to Pearl Harbor Christmas before last, so there you go.
My caregiver is going to Hawaii next Wednesday. I have a nanny.
Is there any family here?
My son.
So we're gonna wrap this up, and anybody want to take pictures later? That's Mr. Luttrell's son right back there, so. Yes.
I went from shooting bullets to make a red velvet cake. I must go for chair, Howard.
Quick witted.
98.
Thank you.
A round of applause for Mr. Bob Luckman. Also, I want to take this time to say how proud I am of the Powell community for hosting this event. Truly, if a community, indeed a nation, is judged on how well it treats and remembers its veterans, let it be said that Powell is at the top of that list. Many of you are aware that last Veterans Day, the people and businesses of Powell came together to erect a small monument outside the front of Powell High School, recognizing the 16 servicemen who were graduates of Powell High School that were killed in action during World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Before that was erected, there wasn't anywhere in Powell of any listing of these servicemen and their ultimate sacrifice. This monument needed to be done, and the Powell community made it happen. Good job to Powell. It is our hope that this program, and hopefully you all got one of those newspapers, that this program, with its message that freedom is not free, with an online distribution to every high school in Knox County, will help educate our future generations on the history and sacrifice of what it takes to defend this continuing experiment called American democracy. We present this memorial tribute to 2,000 plus servicemen who gave their lives on December the 7th, 1941. In this program, you will find extensive stories of bravery and sacrifice during this attack, and other stories of how we fought our way to victory after this devastating blow. Today, we are here to recognize and remember those who gave their life in defense of freedom. It is altogether fitting and proper that we do this. We have a distinguished guest to help us in doing exactly that. We will now have a short video for those of you who are not familiar with Sergeant Sammy Davis, which the movie Forrest Gump was fashioned after. And Sammy will open the floor for a few questions after this video.
I was working at a bowling alley. I ran the restaurant at a bowling alley, and we had a television, and there came a very short clip of the president putting the Medal of Honor on Roger Donald. And he just standing so tall and so straight. And now, because of the military people in my family, I was very aware of what the Medal of Honor was. And I thought, wow, when I grow up, I'd like to be a soldier.
In 1965, after finishing high school, Sammy Davis enlisted in the Army. His father had been an artilleryman during World War II, and he volunteered to do the same. Upon the completion of training, he requested to be sent to Vietnam.
Our job was to provide close and continuous support to the infantry. That's the artilleryman's job. So we would sometimes have to fire almost continuously for 8 or 10 hours. As long as the enemy was attacking our infantrymen, you had to do your job. And then you may lay around for a day or 2 days and not do much. And then you cleaned everything and painted everything and polished your bullets. Sergeant James Gant from Lansing, Michigan, he was the meanest sergeant I've ever seen in my life. And he would make us take each bullet out of our clip every night before it got dark and polish it. He was just a bitter old man. Sergeant Gant was 27 now. He was just a bitter old sergeant, and that's why he was picking on us.
On November 18, 1967, Davis's unit was airlifted to a tiny island in the Mekong Delta near Kai Lake, Vietnam. American infantrymen were already heavily engaged in the area when Davis and his fellow gunners arrived.
So we landed at 8 o'clock in the morning. As soon as we spread the trails on the 105 howitzer, we started firing. And we fired the weapon all day. Just before dark, the enemy broke contact, so therefore we were able to quit firing. And a helicopter, one of our helicopters came in and sat down, and a major got out. And he said, your probability of getting hit tonight is 100%. So prepare yourselves. He got back in his helicopter and away he went. At 2 o'clock exactly, and I remember because I looked at my watch, we heard mortars sliding down the tube, which is a very distinctive sound, and to hear them sliding down the tube, you gotta be pretty close. And I said to me, I said, well, when did we move in mortars? And Hart said, we did. The mortars were just raining, and at 2:30 exactly, the mortars quit. It was this eerie quiet. We looked at each other and we heard whistles being blown like a coach has and orders being shouted in English. And basically what they were saying was go kill the GI. Sergeant Gant said, okay boys, this is it. So we grabbed the beehive round, set it on muzzle action, loaded it in the tube, and we were standing there at our position ready for him. I was waiting for Sergeant Gant to tell me to fire. Now, I knew not to fire until he said fire no matter what was happening, and I could see the enemy all around us. They were doing mass assault waves. Then he said fire, and I pulled the lanyard. Well, the weapon went off, did its job, but the enemy had set up a rocket right across the river from me. And when I fired it, they fired at my muzzle flap. When it hit the shield, it blew me off the piece. It also hit Sergeant Gant right in the chest. And the last thing I can remember was Sergeant Gant just disappearing into the darkness. Well, the enemy started turning my howitzer around, supposedly to turn the fire at our guys. If I'd been awake, I would have known that our next gun back was going to fire a beehive round. Standing rule is you never let the enemy take control of the weapon. You know, common sense. But I was not, I was unconscious. So when the enemy started picking my howitzer up to fire it, Bill Few from Rising Sun, Ohio, fired the beehive. A beehive round effectively turns the 105 howitzer into a shotgun. It fires 18,000 little darts, beehive darts. From mid-thigh up to and including my fourth lumbar vertebra, I had about 30 beehive holes that just passed through, and I had a flak jacket on, which is the only thing that saved my back. When they fired the beehive at me, it woke me up, and I rolled over and I rolled face up in the bottom of my foxhole. I'm looking up and I could see all these pretty lights going right over the top of my foxhole, and I thought, wow, it's just like Christmas. My hearing went like turning the stereo from 0 to 50. You know, went from hearing nothing within just a very short period of time. It got loud enough that the smoke started to clear down my head, and I'm starting to realize what's happening, and they weren't just pretty lights, they were tracers. So I kind of raised up on one elbow, and I looked down, and there was 150 to 200 enemy right there. Well, I picked up my M16, I had 12 clips, which is roughly about 180 rounds. And I started doing my job as a soldier. was just like living in a bad dream. You know, no matter what I did, it's like I wasn't doing nothing to them. It was a reinforced battalion. It was 1,500 against 42 kids. And they just kept coming. Well, I fired the last rounds, and I didn't think that I was probably going to see daylight, but I wasn't going to quit. Because I thought, well, if I don't do my job, those guys behind me ain't got a chance. So I thought, well, I'll see if I can get off one round from the howitzer. So I scrounged around, found the beehive round, set it on muzzle action, found the canister that had not been fired, had to find the powder because we'd had everything set up nice and orderly, and after the mortars had blown everything askew. Now the enemy's still doing their job. I mean, they're everywhere. So I was having to hide and lay in the water, and they'd run over me. And finally, when I found all the components and I loaded the piece, I pulled the lanyard. The gun didn't go off. It went, when I pulled the lanyard, it went pop, and my heart just sunk. This was my last effort. But I could feel the gun kind of going. And then it went off, and it went boom. I had overcharged it. I figured I was only going to get one round. I wanted it to be maximally effective, so I filled the canister full of loose powder. Later they told us, yeah, man, we thought that you had rigged up some kind of big flamethrower or something with all that wet powder. That's why it didn't go off immediately. Well, I was still alive. I thought, well, maybe I can get off one more round. Well, I one more rounded it until I had heard someone across the river shouting, "Don't shoot, I'm a GI." And I seen Wendell Holloway, my brother, standing up, waving his booty hat, saying, "Don't shoot, I'm a GI." I said, my God, somebody's got to go get him. By this point, my body was in real feeble condition, and I knew I couldn't just run down there and swim across the river. So I thought, well, I'll find an air mattress. That's what the Army had given us to sleep on. So I crawled down to the river, swam across the river, stashed the air mattress in the bushes, and started making back to where I'd last seen Glendale standing. There was a foxhole. And instead of just one man being in it, there were 3 men in it. Well, I knew I didn't have the strength to make 3 trips. It had taken me about 45 minutes to make that trip over to that point. And I was just getting so tired. So I asked the man above to give me the strength to carry all 3 of my brothers at one time.
Despite his massive injuries and the unremitting ferocity of the Viet Cong attack, Davis made 2 agonizing trips across the river, shuttling his wounded companions to relative safety.
They pulled Jim up on the bank, started doing what they could for him, and I started crawling back to help Bill Fuse guys when I came across my Mino sergeant again. About half his body was in water, had this big hole in his chest, and he couldn't talk, but he picked his hand up. And I thought, my sergeant wants me to hold his hand. So I kind of crawled up and I grabbed a hold, and I still was hoping that he was going to tell me what to do next. You know, I grabbed a hold of his hand and I looked down in his eyes. The light bulb that comes on in your head that your daddy always told you about, the light bulb came on. All these things that he had, polishing the bullet, the beehive round, setting the time fuse on it, setting up 100-degree heat with a blindfold. Sergeant Gant shared with us the things that he knew was going to help us survive. And when I looked down in his eyes, I knew that he didn't hate me, that he loved me. You got to love somebody a whole lot to pick on, teach them things. Jim Dyster was one of the last people that we loaded on the helicopters. He was with our dad. The medic and the helicopter seen a bubble come up through the chest wound that Jim had in his chest. He'd been shot in the chest also. And took his stethoscope off and put it on his heart and had a heartbeat. And Jim Dyster is alive and well today, living in Salina, Kansas. I got to hold Jim Dyster's grandbaby. What an awesome feeling. Knowing that if I hadn't done my job when I was just a kid, that this precious little family would not be here. There were 11 of us left standing that morning out of the 42 that started. 12 counting me. The other 11 men are the men that put me in. I didn't do anything heroic. I did my job. That's what soldiers do. And if there was one of these given that night, there should be at least 42 of them. Because if any one of us had not done their job, there would be none of us alive. It sounds silly, perhaps, to say that I went to war and found out about what real love is. No, I didn't go to war to kill people. I went to war because I loved my daddy. I wanted him to be proud of me. I went to war because I love my grandpas. And I love my country. And when I got over there, the reason why we fought so hard was because we discovered we loved each other. That we were all we had. And they became brothers. We became brothers. And that's lasted up, it's been 36 years, and those men that I fought with are still my brothers. So I learned about what real love is.
It is now my honor to introduce our special guest, Sergeant Samuel E. Davis, Medal of Honor recipient, U.S. Army retired. And Sammy, if you want to come up here and answer a few questions, if anybody has any, can I get another round of applause for Sammy? Thank you, sir. I'm ready for questions.
God bless you.
Yes, ma'am.
God bless you.
I have 18 grandchildren. Definitely blessed. And one great-granddaughter. So that I'm blessed most days.
Tell them what your mother told you, Sam.
Ma'am?
Tell them what your mother always told you.
Ever since I can remember, my mama, Sammy Lee, you don't lose till you quit trying. And that stuck with me to today. That's a true fact. No matter what you're doing, you don't lose until you quit trying. What? Yes, ma'am.
When you went into the service, they had the lottery. The lottery was when the lucky guys got the low numbers and they dropped out of college.
No, they just drafted everybody. I joined.
Okay, you joined. When my husband got it, they had the lottery going in 67, 68,
Really?
and 69.
I didn't even know they had a lottery back then.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the mega bucks though.
Next question. I will answer any question that you have, except for my secret fishing hole. Yes, ma'am.
Are you still seeing any of your other brothers?
We try to gather at least once a year. Now, because I'm on the road traveling and speaking, I get to go see them much more often, but we try to gather at least once a year. There's 7 of us out of the original guys that are still with us. But we're sliding away. We're old. 77 to, I think we have one man that's 82. But he's in better shape than most of us. God bless him. Yes, ma'am. I can't hear you.
Your wife.
Tell us about your wife.
My wife, Dixie. Well, Dixie had to fly home last night. Our oldest son, Tony, had a massive stroke yesterday. He was paralyzed on the right side, couldn't speak, couldn't see very well either, he said. But this morning, called Dixie, and she was still in the room. She hadn't slept yet. And he said, I'm doing better. I mean, it was slurred, but he's doing better. They did an MRI on him this morning to find out, they want to find out where the blood clot came from. The doctor told him that 51% of the people that have COVID or have had COVID have these massive blood clots. Something in it makes your blood clot. So when I get done here, I'll call Dixie again and see what they found out.
We're from.
We live in Freedom, Indiana. Population 200, and we live 5 miles outside of town. We live way out in the country. We live on a gravel road.
Sammy,
Yes, sir.
this young lady.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Sir, have you received your Quilter ballot?
Yes, ma'am, I have. Thank you very much.
Just going to make sure.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
And how do we get a copy of that, what it just showed, the video? Okay.
Talk to the boss, he can fix you up.
Because I suppose you can't make all these meetings, but I would like to show it at some organizations.
That would be wonderful.
that I know.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
You spoke yesterday to a large group of high schoolers.
That was awesome.
Tell me what it means to you to speak to the next generation, the youngest generation that we have, and what do you hope they take away from those experiences with you?
I spend as much time as I can talking to school students. Several of the Medal of Honor recipients, they don't care to talk to one's high schools, grammar schools. I love going talking to kindergartners. The questions they ask, I enjoy. Sergeant Davis, where did you poop in the jungle? He really wanted to know. He wasn't being smart. And then the little girl next to him, Sergeant Davis. Well, how did you clean yourself? Banana leaves. Don't use the grass, it's sawgrass. But I had the privilege of talking to schools all over America. Actually, I've spoken to schools overseas. My language limitations kind of hindered a little bit, but I was amazed at how many kids spoke English. So.
What do you hope that they bring away from the experience?
What I try to help them understand is that no matter what, you don't lose until you quit trying. And I've been doing this for many, many years, and the amount of people that come up to me, airports or wherever, and say, Sir Davis, you told me that I didn't lose till I quit trying when I was a sophomore in high school, and now they're doing really well. So that's good. They didn't lose. They didn't quit trying. God bless them. It makes my heart feel good. It's worth the effort that I put into it, because they're the ones that's going to, those kids we talked to yesterday, wow. It went so well. They asked great questions, and I got a lot of hugs. Don't tell the news media that. But it was wonderful. It was wonderful. Yes, sir.
Were you married at any time during the service?
Well, I got married afterwards, but when I was in Vietnam, no, I was not.
Oh, okay, I would like to give a shout out to military spouses.
Yes.
I was very lucky. My wife grew up military, went 14 different schools. She knew what change was all about. Yes, that was good when
I understand. My wife is tougher than I am. Yes, sir. She's hung in there with me, and we're both remarried. Her husband was a 3-tour Navy corpsman in Vietnam. I just did 1 tour. Well, they were going to retire me. I woke up in the hospital in Kazama, Japan, and they said they were going to retire me from the Army and send me home. Well, I was still on my AO in Vietnam, and I woke up, I thought, I didn't know where I was. So they told me what was happening. General Westmoreland came to the hospital in Japan. We had met several times before. He gave me a new pair of boots about a month earlier, and he had been tracking my existence. And he came to Japan to talk to me. And I told him, I said, sir, I don't want to be sent home. I want to go back and be with my brothers. Well, General Westmoreland had been in World War II. And he understood why I needed to go back and touch my brothers. And he squared it away. They did not retire me then. They let me go back to my unit in Vietnam. I can still remember when I walked into, we just had big tents. That was real good. And my captain came walking over to me. Well, I can't repeat exactly what he said, but he said, I don't know what I'm going to do with you. They made me a cook. So I wrote home to Mama. I said, now I know how you get to be a cook in the Army. You get all blown up. And it was good. I got to talk to all my guys every day. And it was amazing how the questions started off at this level, and within a week or two, they were asking what was really in their heart. Because we lost so many men. Almost all the guys left were all new guys.
My wife had took Vietnam in about 68.
That's me too. I was there 67, 68, and that's November the 18th, 1967 was when I earned this. Received it on November the 19th, 1968. So 1 year and 1 day. And there were several of my guys that had served with in Vietnam were able to come to the presentation. Yes.
How did your experience in Vietnam and your award ceremony get chosen for the movie Forrest Gump?
You know, they've never told me. Somebody evidently had seen the presentation or heard about me or something, and they said, well, we'll make a movie out of it. They're in the process of making another movie right now, and it will be called Cudgel, C-U-D-G-E-L. They're still in the fundraising portion of it. I didn't realize that it took so much money to make a movie. But these two young men that are doing it, they came and stayed a week at my house, and I took them fishing. They said that they hope to have it out by 2025 is when it should hit the streets. So we'll see.
What company is making the movie?
Sir?
What company is making the movie?
What's the company?
I don't know the company that's making it. I've never asked. I didn't care which company.
Disney or who?
It may be Disney because Jonathan Flora that works for Disney has called me. Well, we've met. He's come to different functions all across the country. It may be. I don't know. I haven't asked that question.
What's the significance of that name?
Cudgel, that's what the fire base where I earned the medal. Fire base Cudgel.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
How long did it take you to recover from your injuries?
Well, let's see. So far, it's been 54 years. Ma'am?
How long were you in the hospital?
Many times. Those little beehive darts, I had 30 of them go through me. And what I didn't understand, they're just little darts. They made scar tissue all through my body. Liver, lungs, and everywhere there's scar tissue. The doctor told me that I've got one scar tissue. They did a MRI or something. It's the size of my finger. That's how big because this is that every time you do anything, you rip that scar tissue and it makes more scar tissue. And that's one of the reasons why I hurt so bad is because that scar tissue keeps ripping and tearing and creating pain, and that's why I hurt. But I'm walking. I didn't walk too well or do hardly anything for many years later. I mean, I still got it. I didn't quit trying because you don't do this till you quit trying. And I'm still here. Thank you, sir. I firmly believe in my heart that the reason why I'm living today is because my job isn't done yet. And I try to keep doing my job. Yes, sir.
If you could go back to when you were about to enlist, would you change anything that you've ever done?
What would I change?
No, if you could go back, would you change anything?
I would try to do things even better. But as far as change, no, I've had a good life. I've been very fortunate. Thank you, sir. In Vietnam, I wished I would have been more attentive. I just had turned 21, 17 days before I earned the Medal of Honor. And I didn't think I was going to live to see 21. I can remember on my birthday, wow, man, I made it to 21 years old. And life is good. I try to appreciate things even more today than I did all the rest of my life, because now I understand even more the value of it. I try to be a good soldier. Go on. Yes, ma'am.
Do you suffer any psychological effects?
Post-traumatic stress, I'm 180% disabled. Seriously, that's what the doctor told me. I'm 180 when they go to adding up all the I'm 180%. So yes, I do suffer from post-traumatic stress. God bless my wife, Dixie. She helps me tremendously. She grabs me by the throat and throws me on the ground. Don't tell her I said that. Yes, ma'am.
What would you say to the kids going into the military?
Do the best job you can. You don't lose until you quit trying. I've had so many students come to me after they've served for a few years, and I'll be in wherever, and they'll come up, Sergeant Davis, you talked to our class in, the youngest one was 83, and that was in California. And they come up to me and said that I'd talked to his class, and I can't remember the name of the town. It was a small town, but he said, and he was in the military. You have changed my life. And I said, well, thank you. I've always stood up for what I believe was right in my heart. And I said, well, thank you. Having these people, come up to me years after I've spoke to them and tell me little stories about how what I've told them has affected their life. You don't lose until you quit trying. God bless it.
Sergeant Davis.
Yes, sir.
On behalf of Powell High School, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for yesterday. I've been teaching 25 years. That was the best day of teaching I've ever had. It was amazing. And then I just want to ask two questions. One, who are your role models? And two, how many of your children or grandchildren have served?
My role models, my mama's daddy, John Helly, served in World War I. And he didn't talk a lot about it, but we would sit on a bucket by the pond, and I would ask him a few questions, kind of touching on it. And after he started talking about it, then that went on for many years, and I appreciate that greatly. My daddy's daddy served in World War II. We go all the way back to the Spanish-American War. And unfortunately, I didn't get to talk to my great-grandpa, but I did get to meet him and love him. Life is good. Next question. Are we done? Yes, sir.
How do you define courage?
How do you find courage? When you stand up when everybody thinks they should be sitting down. You become involved and you do what you know is right in your heart. Because I'm not a brave man. I'm 77 years old and I'm still scared of the dark. But I haven't quit trying.
Have you been back to Vietnam since?
Yes, sir. In 2016, Dixie and I and Jim Deister, one of the men who swam across the river for Vietnam, we got to go back to Vietnam. Jim still had a set of orders. He was in the infantry. He wasn't in my unit, but he was in the infantry that we were in that specific AO trying to save. And he had a set of orders that had the grid coordinates on the map. And we got to go exactly to where the grid coordinates said. And it was amazing. My phone that doesn't work in my house, I got to go outside and stand like this to maybe get it to work. It worked wonderful in Vietnam. I mean, it was amazing. And where I was a red dot, and the grid ordinances was a blue dot.
And we kept walking around in the jungle, and finally, when the docks merged, we were right on the river. And one of the things that Jim and I had talked about was this enormous cypress tree, like 8 feet around. We talked about that. And we walked, when the docks merged, there was the big cypress tree. It was down, but it was still laying on the edge of the riverbank. And Jim told me things. Like I said, Jim was not in my unit. He was the infantry that we were there helping. And Jim told me many things over the years. And we stood there and we were remembering what happened that night. And we were crying and hugging each other. And we forgot that our wives were standing right behind us. And we turned around and realized that our wives was there. And we got hugs that were awesome. And that Jim still, and I still talk about that day, how it lightened our hearts. It was wonderful to go back. I'd wanted to go back to Vietnam for many, many, many years, but I just, well, I'll do it next year. Well, I'll do it next year. Well, I'll do it next year. Finally, we said, okay, we're going. And I'm glad I did. It helped. I was only remembering all the bad things that happened. And I have dreams about it every night, still. But now, because we went back, I'm able to intersperse the dream with good memories. And going back to Vietnam, we got to meet with 5 of my former enemy from that night. Our State Department worked with their State Department, and we had a big dinner. It was only supposed to be a lunch at 12 o'clock, and we were there for like 5 hours together. The first hour, you know, they look at me, and I look at them, they're enemy. But after we sat there for a while, I wanted them to understand that I didn't hate them because they were the enemy. I was just a soldier doing my job, and that's what I told them. And their eyes went from here to like that, and they said, they actually spoke more English than they originally wanted me to understand. They said, that's exactly what we feel. We did not hate you because you were the enemy. We were just soldiers doing our job. We came as former enemies, and we left as brothers. It was awesome. Got to go back to exactly where the battle took place and see things. I'd forgotten how beautiful the country is. And that helped my heart and helped my nightmares. So now, when I have my nightmares at night, I can intersperse the good thing. Truly, the country is beautiful. The people are beautiful. And it helps. And then I can go into sleep. And when I wake up, I remember how pretty it was. The jungle is beautiful. Scary, but beautiful. Yes, sir.
When did you get your Medal of Honor?
What did I get? Well, the action took place on November the 18th, 1967. The ceremony, which is Forrest Gump, took place on November the 19th, 1968. It took 1 year and 1 day from the time of action until President Johnson put the medal around my neck.
Who presented it?
Johnson. Yes, sir. I was not married at the time, and President Johnson had 2 daughters. And as he reminded me, he said, I was stationed at Fort Hood, Texas at the time, and he said, I've got 2 daughters. And he handed me a card that had the lock, the big gate that goes into the farm. And I got to go down several times. One girl ended up marrying a Navy guy, and then I got married too. So.
Tell about meeting Linda out at the pool.
Well, I can't tell you the whole story, but she was not interested in an Army guy. She had already met a Navy guy, and that's who she was pursuing at the time, and she didn't want nothing to do with me. But she was nice. But I got to go down to their ranch at least 3 times, and it always went good. Lady Bird treated me awesome. I still love Lady Bird. I mean, she was so awesome, and they have a pretty good sized ranch there, did have, and she was into wildflowers.
and they had all the countries they went to, she'd gotten wildflowers and brought them back and planted them on the ranch. So every time I got to go down, we would walk out through the ranch and in Texas and say, I got this flower in Belgium, I got this flower in wherever. And it was just cool. So we got to talk and be friends. I loved her. The president was never able to come when I was there at the ranch, but we called him. She called him, let me talk to him every time. So it went great. Yes, sir.
Sammy, I was at Hoi An, Dinbon District.
Yes, sir.
Nonprofit between Da Nang and Chu Lai.
Yes, sir.
And the Marines used Korean Marines for their 105 close support.
Yes, sir.
And they were pretty good.
They were awesome.
And I was just wondering, down south, if you ever run into the Korean artillerymen.
Yes, sir. We run into them quite often. They would pick us up in a helicopter with the howitzer strung underneath and take us. We had to go way up north a few times if they were doing a big operation. Well, they would bring us up and we'd help Marines, whatever. It was wonderful. Got to meet a lot of our troops. The Korean troops were STRAC troops. I mean, wow, good. Next question. Yes, ma'am.
How many of your children and grandchildren will serve?
How many children served in the military? 2 oldest. My son Tony and my daughter Nicole. Tony was in the 9th Infantry Division in Iraq or Afghanistan. He was in and did a good job. My son, the reason why my wife Dixie's not here today, Tony had a massive stroke yesterday. And so she flew home last night. He's doing better today. When she got there yesterday evening, he was totally paralyzed on the right side, couldn't speak, couldn't move. He could not move. And this morning I called Dixie just before I came here, and she was still in the hotel room, or excuse me, the hospital room. But he could move his arms now, and he was starting to remember things, so he's doing better. They did an MRI on him to find out where the blood clot came from. They drilled a hole in his brain and stuck a big needle in and sucked the blood clot out of his brain. Wow. So I'm anxious to talk to him to find out how he's doing. Next question. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
So while you were in Vietnam, did you pick up on any of the language?
TT.
I'm Dixon Dick. I'm Dixon Dick.
If I'm around speaking the language for just a short period of time, I pick it up pretty quick. I've been gifted from the man above that Germany or Venezuela or wherever, it's just a short period of time, and no, I'm not fluent. I'm not even fluent in English. I understand and get what we need. I speak Vietnamese. That's very small now. Yes, ma'am.
How many years altogether were you in the military?
I was 18 years, and I was medically retired twice, and General Westmoreland brought me back in the first time, and then the second time, I just went ahead and, because I was bad, I was in a wheelchair and couldn't walk, but I got more metal in me than most Toyotas. One of the things that I tried to convince all my brothers and sisters, get it fixed. So many of my brothers, they got shot up and blowed up. Well, why don't you get it fixed? I'm going to do it next year. Oh, well, you're hurting today. Why don't you go get it done, get it fixed? No, I'm going to do it next year. So all of your brothers and sisters, tell them, go get it fixed, man. I'm walking better now than I did a long time ago. Because you don't lose till you quit trying. Next question.
Were you consulting on the movie? Did you do a lot of consulting on the movie?
No, not a lot.
Did they give you a box of chocolates at least?
That bench that
Yes.
is in Savannah, that was in Savannah, Gary Sinise has that in his office now. And Dixie and I sat on that bench. Gary Sinise, Lieutenant Dan, he's one of the most kindest, generous, loving men that I've ever met in my life, and I believe in Gary's. I keep trying to convince him to run for president of the United States because we need men of his quality running this country. And he said, Sam, I think I can do better doing what I'm doing, because he has built so many homes for our disabled veterans. I mean, really nice homes. And Gary, I sat on Gary's foundation board. He's an amazing man. I still keep trying to get him to run for president. I'm not saying anything bad about our current president. I just can't say much good. So I don't say anything. As I have told Joe Biden, this was years ago, I've known Joe Biden for many years. I didn't vote for you, but I'll die for you. He didn't understand.
He still doesn't.
I know.
Thank you very much.
Cool. Next question. Who's got the best fishing hole? Cool. I love to fish. I have 18 grandchildren, and that's my job as the grandpa to take them all fishing. And well, now they're old enough to, not all of them, but they take grandpa fishing. Come by and open up the door in the pickup truck. Let's go fishing. So I jump in and we go to a pond. Next big question. Are we done? All righty.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. All right, we want to have just a moment of silence for those who lost their lives on December the 7th, 1941. Please join me in just a moment of silence.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you. Lest we forget, we will now have the presentation of the proclamation by Michelle Carringer.
Well, I can't tell you all how honored and how humbled I am to be able to be here today and to represent the great state of Tennessee as State Representative District 16, which is Fountain City, Halls, and Powell. And it's a great honor that I serve, and I hope that if there's anything I can help you with or you have a question with, please call me, and I will give you my cell phone number anytime. But please call me or call my office because that is what we're doing. We're still serving Sammy Lee, and what an honor it is. I have to pick on Coach Rusty Smith there from Powell a little bit. I think he and I obviously got pretty much the same education. We have I'm pronouncing some words that we have become even better friends here. So I will read the proclamation for Sammy Lee Davis from the House of the State of Tennessee. Yes, and this is for you to put in your museum. No, they're doing. So bear with me if I don't say some of these words. I asked my good friend Garrett Hannis, who's military, to Garrett, tell me exactly how to pronounce this. But anyway, my husband says,
Ask Garrett. Garrett will know. Yeah, he knows all that military language, so I'm learning. So, the State of Tennessee Proclamation. Whereas it is fitting that we should salute those esteemed military veterans who, through their extraordinary efforts, have brought great pride to their nation. And whereas one such noteworthy individual is Sammy Lee Davis, who was honored by the White House with the Congressional Medal of Honor on November the 19th, 1968, the highest military decoration awarded by the United States government. And whereas the Congressional Medal of Honor is conferred only upon members of the United States Armed Forces who distinguish themselves through conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of life above and beyond the call of duty. And whereas born on November 1st, 1946 in Dayton, Ohio, then Private First Class Sammy Lee Davis of the U.S. Army distinguished himself during the early morning hours of November the 18th, 1967, while serving as a cannery with Battery C, 2nd Battalion, 4th Artillery, 9th Infantry Division at a remote fire support base during the Vietnam War. And whereas the fire support base was under heavy enemy mortar attack when an estimated reinforced Viet Cong battalion launched a fierce ground assault upon the fire support base. The attacking enemy drove to within 25 meters of the friendly positions, with only a river separating the Viet Cong from the fire support base. And whereas detecting a nearby enemy position, Sergeant Davis seized a machine gun and provided covering fire for his gun crew as they attempted to bring direct artillery fire on the enemy. Despite his efforts, an enemy recoilless rifle round scored a direct hit upon the artillery piece. And whereas the resonant blast hurled the gun crew from their weapon and blew Sergeant Davis into a foxhole, he struggled to his feet and returned to the howitzer, which was burning fiercely. And whereas ignoring repeated warnings to seek cover, Sergeant Davis rammed a shell into the gun, disregarding a withering hail of enemy fire directed against his position. He aimed and fired the howitzer, which rolled backward and knocked him violently to the ground. And whereas undaunted Sergeant Davis returned to the weapon to fire again, when an enemy mortar round exploded within 20 meters of his position, injuring him painfully. Nevertheless, Sergeant Davis loaded the artillery piece, aimed and fired, but again he was knocked down by the recoil. And whereas in complete disregard for his safety, Sergeant Davis loaded and fired 3 more shells into the enemy, ignoring his extensive injuries and his inability to swim. He picked up an air mattress and struck out across the deep river to rescue 3 wounded comrades on the far side. And whereas upon reaching the 3 wounded men, he stood upright and fired into the dense vegetation to prevent the Viet Cong from advancing, while the most seriously wounded soldier was helped across the river. Sergeant Davis protected the 2 remaining casualties until he could pull them across the river to the fire support base. And whereas, although suffering from painful wounds, he refused medical attention, joining another howitzer crew, which fired at the large Viet Cong force until it broke contact and fled. And whereas Sergeant Davis' extraordinary heroism at the risk of his life is in keeping with the highest traditions of the military service and reflected great credit upon himself and the U.S. Army. And whereas Sammy Lee Davis epitomizes the volunteer spirit that is synonymous with the state, his incomparable bravery in the force of great peril have earned him a rightful place in the annals of our country's military history. And whereas we find it appropriate to acknowledge and applaud one of our nation's most noteworthy citizens,
Now therefore, I, Cameron Sexton, Speaker of the House of Representatives of the 113th General Assembly of the State of Tennessee, at the request of and in conjunction with Representative Michelle Carringer, do hereby proclaim that we commend and congratulate Congressional Medal of Honor recipient Sammy Lee Davis, extending our sincere gratitude to his selfless valor in battle and best wishes for every continued success. And I want you to know that you are invited to the state of Tennessee, to Knox County, and to Nashville anytime during our session to be my guest on the House floor. That anytime that you can come, and you got to bring Dixie. Because we met Dixie yesterday, and she is his bright and shining armor.
Dixie saved my life. Seriously.
So we were thankful. This is a little something for you. Don't lose it. Make sure that Miss Dixie gets that. And I will have to pay a little tribute to my father was in the Army, and I saw his disabilities from being frostbit so bad, being over in Goose Bay, driving the heavy trucks, and then became also a cook there. So, and I remember my cousin Gerald Mullins, who is with me. He had an Uncle Benny Mullins, and that's what we remember from our early, which was when you were in Vietnam, is he came home from Vietnam, and I was at their house, because we were raised more like brother and sister, and I'll never forget his Uncle Benny Mullins walking up the gravel road out off Ridgeview in Gibbs area that y'all are familiar with, carrying his green duffel bag. Because, you know, they weren't allowed to come back here in their uniforms. And Benny had, when they were attacked one night in their tents, and they had crawled out underneath their tents, and he laid in a cesspool of leeches while the enemy was there. Benny had a very bad stuttering and suffered very much from PTSD. He lives in Corbin, Kentucky now, but we also had a cousin who we never got to meet, who left 2 little babies that he never met. And so every Memorial Day we go and visit the graves, and I've always seen the picture of Duke, who is Vietnam. And so the people ask me why I do what I do. It's because of that right there. It's because our freedom is not free.
And that's why we have to do everything we can to make our children today understand that freedom's not free. It has to be earned.
Amen. And that is why I serve the great state of Tennessee, is to make sure that our military men and women are supported in every possible way we can. And we're not doing a very good job, people. It's 2023. We need to do exceptional, and we're not there. And so I pray.
Don't lose till we quit.
That's right. That's right. And so I'm not giving up. I am not giving up. And I'm just so honored, and I love each and every one of y'all out here. And I just thank you so much. Thank you. Short proclamation from the governor of Tennessee. We're so sorry that he could not be here today with us, but this is in recognition of Pearl Harbor Day. Whereas at 7:55 a.m. on December the 7th, 1941, the silence of Sunday morning was fragmented with the Imperial Japanese Navy attacked our forces on the United States Naval Base at Pearl Harbor, leaving 2,403 Americans dead and much of our nation's Pacific Fleet destroyed. And whereas the devastating attack on Pearl Harbor led to the United States entrance into World War II, and whereas today we remember the greatest generation who showed great courage and resolve to secure the freedom of millions around the world. And whereas the crystal waters of Pearl Harbor have been the resting place of sailors and Marines aboard the USS Arizona, USS Utah, and USS Oklahoma for over 80 years. And whereas we honor these patrons and commemorate the valor of all those who served, and whereas we are eternally grateful for members of our nation's military and their families who freely risk all the benefit of others. Now, therefore, I, Bill Lee, Governor of the state of Tennessee, do hereby proclaim December 7th, 2023 as Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day in Tennessee and encourage all citizens to join me in this worthy observation.
There's actually 2 copies in there.
I'd like to say something else.
You bet.
I have the privilege of knowing all the Medal of Honor recipients. This was in 82 or 83, and we had a Medal of Honor reunion in Hawaii. What I'd never heard before, all the wives were naturally on the island, and we got to talk. Well, at that time there was 12 or 15 that were there, wives, and they told the direction that the Japanese came in was from behind the island on Pearl Harbor. It just tore my heart up listening to them. They could see the Japanese planes coming. They were coming over treetop high. And the ladies, the husbands all had weapons, and they were out in their yards shooting at the Japanese planes. They only got down 1 or 2, they said, that they knew of. But they could see the pilot in the plane. That's how low they were. And just listening to their stories, I'm getting goosebumps, remembering the expression on their face and their heart, and it was awesome. Although they were not in the military, their husbands were, and they were doing a wonderful job in the military and saved a lot of lives. So God bless them.
All right. On behalf of the Disabled American Veterans, Chapter 24, I would like to thank you all for attending today's ceremony. Please rise for the placing of the wreaths by the Carnes High School Junior ROTC, benediction, and taps.
The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face to shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. Father, we pray for those who lost their lives and their family members. We pray that their sacrifice might be indelibly written on our hearts. And Father, I pray that in the year 2024, we would march forward in a spirit of patriotism and carry on the fight for those who've fallen. Father, we will never forget this day, a day that will live in infamy, and we'll praise thee for all that thou dost for this community and for our country, for it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
All right, we will now have taps, and Sammy Lee Davis will sign some books outside if you're interested. Taps, please. Thank y'all for coming.